American History TV, a program produced by the Republican National Committee in support of President Gerald Ford's 1976 presidential campaign. It aired on national television the evening before Election Day that year. President Ford went on to lose that election and the presidency to Democratic candidate Jimmy Carter. This is about a half hour.
I'm Gerald. In the last 10 days, I've been traveling all over America with an extraordinary human being, President Gerald Ford. And I've done it because I believe in this man. You know, I've never done much more before than just vote. But this year, the stakes were just too high to just sit on the sidelines. So on this last night before the election, I want you to see a film about Jerry Ford. Documentary about his background, about his family, about the job he's already doing, and about his hopes for America. And then I want you to hear from President Ford himself. But before you see this film or hear from the president, somebody else has something to say about this election and about this man. Now, all America knows her, and all America loves her. It's Pearlie, Miss Pearl Bailey.
I've never done this before in my life. I'm not here to judge men. The Bible says I am not to judge. But I do hope that you think before you vote. Use all the goodness within you. Don't, just because some people will say, well, yeah, but what happened a couple of years ago? Yes, you're right. A couple of years ago, our country was truly shaken. And a man who was put at the head of it, named Gerald Ford. I really believe in his heart, oh, he's made some mistakes, honey. You better believe he has. I wouldn't sit here and even try to say he didn't. But I'll tell you what, if a man is trying, and a man has more than dreams, he has something called get up and go and truth. And most of all, he has something I like very much in every human being, simplicity and honesty. Because I really believe he's an honest man. That's why I like Gerald Ford. And that's why I hope that, I don't know, please think about it. It's so important. It really is.
That's a real lady. She gives you a lump in your throat. She's talking about my kind of guy. And I think he's your kind of guy, too. And now I want you to take a look at a special documentary film about President Ford. And then when it's over, President Ford himself will talk to you right here from Air Force One.
I am honored by your nomination, and I accept it.
August 19, 1976. With the mandate of his party, President Ford spoke from the heart to the heartland of America.
You are the people who pay the taxes and obey the laws. You are the people who make our system work. You are the people who make America what it is. It is from your ranks that I come, and on your side I stand. Something wonderful happened to this country of ours the past 2 years. We all came to realize it on the 4th of July. Together, out of years of turmoil and tragedy, Americans recaptured the spirit of 1776.
The pioneer spirit of the revolutionary founders and immigrant ancestors that found new expression on the 4th of July was the spirit that moved Gerald Ford all of his life. It was alive and flourishing in Omaha, Nebraska in 1913. It was the spirit of men who could reach as high as they were tall. Gerald Ford was born there, born to reach for the highest in personal achievement. He moved to Grand Rapids, who grew up with a family that was loving, and who taught him that there was also the obligation to serve. It showed in achieving the National Honor Society and in the badge of Eagle Scout. It showed again as captain of the high school football team.
He knew practically every position on the team. The more he learned, the more he helped. And Jerry was 100% in whatever he attempted to do, because he wouldn't go into anything and do it just half. And when the going was the toughest was when he was the best.
It got tougher at Michigan, where he lettered 3 years, and where his teammates voted him most valuable player in 1934.
He was a good ball player. He played on 2 undefeated ball clubs and lettered 3 years that he earned his letters. He earned.
And Willis Ward earned his letter, too. In those years, some major teams would not play against black athletes.
Now, when we played Georgia Tech, I was benched. It hurt Jerry Ford badly. It seemed as though as the game got started, the fellow on the other side of the line made a remark about him loving people like me. And his adjectives were not, they were bleep adjectives, so I won't use it. Whereupon Jerry and Bill Borgman put a block on him that ended that fellow's participation in the game. So they came back that Monday and told me that they dedicated that block to me.
Every time I come back to Yale, I find myself almost overwhelmed by nostalgia. It's been so long and so much has happened since I first got off the train at the New Haven station in 1935.
Gerald Ford went on to Yale to become an assistant football coach. He decided on a career in law as well.
That made it very difficult for him, because I know very few students in the law school at that time that were doing outside activities simultaneously. It was a very rigorous schedule, a very rigorous kind of place to be, and the competition was acute. And you couldn't do outside things and still get through the law school and with high standing. And yet he did this, and he was one of the few that did.
Besides Governor Scranton, this extraordinary class at Yale Law School was to produce Supreme Court Justices Stewart and White. Of the 120, 99 were Phi Beta Kappa. Gerald Ford graduated in the top third. Gerald Ford serves in combat through the decisive Pacific campaigns. One duty, manning the aft station guns.
Lieutenant Ford had the qualities to prepare and the qualities to act, and this requires leadership of a very high order. The steady day-to-day work, the maintenance, the routine, that's what you have to have so that when the crisis comes, you can meet it. On this particular occasion, we were attacked by Japanese torpedo bombers. 2 of them penetrated the destroyer screen and launched torpedoes. The torpedoes missed, but Ford didn't miss. He fired, and they both went down.
In 1948, Lieutenant Commander Ford leaves the campaigns of war for the campaigns of politics. Congressman Ford wins re-election 12 times. Politics and marriage began together for Jerry Ford. He married Betty during his first campaign.
When you're a congressman and dedicated to your work, you work hard at the job, and every 2 years you work hard to keep it by campaigning. When he was home...
But Jerry Ford found time for family. He had grown up in a loving environment. Together, he and Betty created another.
Jerry Ford, as I knew him for 19 years in the House, was one of the most decent, honorable guys with whom I've ever had the privilege of working. He was selected by his peers as the minority leader of his party, one of the toughest juries in the world. And then when he was selected as Vice President of the United States, and there were 300 FBI people out looking at everything he'd done or said from, I guess, almost the day he was born. A thorough investigation was made by an overwhelmingly Democratic Congress, and he came through with flying colors. The people in the House and in the Senate had confidence in not only Jerry Ford, the man, but in the way that they believed he would conduct the government responsibilities as the vice president and later as the president, as the leader of the country.
It was an hour in our history that troubled our minds and tore at our hearts. Anger and hatred had risen to dangerous levels, dividing friends and families. The polarization of our political order had aroused unworthy passions of reprisal and revenge. Our governmental system was closer to stalemate than at any time since Abraham Lincoln took that same oath of office.
In those troubled times, a distressed nation was stirred by a new and candid voice.
I am acutely aware that you have not elected me as your president by your ballots. So I ask you to confirm me as your president with your prayers. My fellow Americans, our long nightmare is over.
And so he began. Without seeking the job, he had been preparing for it with virtually a lifetime of leadership and achievement. Now, from the start, his administration would reflect his decency, his openness.
When I came to this Oval Office, I tried to get people to speak up to me, even though they disagreed. I tried to make the atmosphere in the Oval Office more relaxed rather than austere, and I just wouldn't be comfortable making people snap to just because I'm president.
He sits back and listens and relaxes, and at the end of that, he feels he's much closer to the issue that must be decided than if he were merely to look at a piece of paper. Being in and out of the office as frequently as I am on handling appointments, I have an opportunity to see that a number of times.
There's one issue to which I disagreed on, and that's the issue of busing. My feeling is different from that of the other people in the administration. But once again, I have the feeling that the president has taken my views into full consideration and weighing them. I can't say that his conclusion is wrong.
While he is willing to listen to contrary points of view and listen to a debate, he's also extremely aware that there comes a point when the debate has to cease.
I think we ought to go public, tell the public who's causing the problem. The Congress is just plain negligent in this case, and I think we ought to hit them very hard.
You want to do that this morning?
I think we should.
The administration of Gerald Ford had begun its steady course. The spiral of government spending had seemed unstoppable. Taxes, inflation had risen relentlessly. No one before had had the courage to say no to ever-increasing government programs.
We have a No New Start program where we don't cancel a single contract or a single project.
President Ford cut spending by over $9 billion. He cut inflation in half. Our confidence was coming back. America started back to work with meaningful, proud jobs, not dependent on government handouts. While extending and improving benefits for those without work, President Ford unshackled the private sector, providing an unparalleled 4 million new jobs in 1.5 years.
Over one half of the grain moving across international boundaries is grown by you, the American farmer. It's imperative that you maintain the freedom to market crops and to find customers wherever you can.
Unfettered by government restraints, the productive capacity of the American farmer has been turned loose. Farm income has risen dramatically. America is the granary for a hungry world.
Americans have learned that we cannot police every remote corner of the earth, nor fill every empty bowl. But we can be an immense influence for reason and for peace in this world in which we live.
I would rather travel 1,000 miles for peace than take a single step for war.
2 years of office, President Ford travels over 200,000 miles in pursuit of world peace and economic progress. He visits 14 foreign nations, has 121 meetings with foreign leaders.
When I start talking about foreign policy, I'm talking about people like me who represent people like you. While I'm at a negotiating table with a foreign leader, I'm not looking across the table at a nation, I'm looking at another person. The differences between nations that keep us apart are less important than the similarities that bring us together as people. This is the lesson of our common humanity.
The lines of communication are kept open. Small wars must not become big wars. Step by step, war averted is peace preserved. In the Middle East, the seemingly insoluble conflicts yield for the first time to negotiation. It is the United States' effort which brings about what Israel and Egypt call a turning point.
The agreement initial this past week provides time that will be needed to work toward concluding a lasting peace agreement in the Middle East. America can be very proud of its role as peacemaker in these negotiations.
A nation at peace must be a nation prepared. Under President Ford's leadership, Congress enlarges the military budget, reversing the 10-year downward trend. The qualitative superiority of American weapons is assured. Cords of steel can best bind the accords of peace. President Ford has no fear for the future of this country. The America of Gerald Ford is secure, idealistic, and mature. His vision of tomorrow is as close as his own children. Gerald Ford sees the future as something his children will inherit. He sees their present very much like any other parent.
If I've been dating a guy for a while, my parents won't say anything until it's all over with. You know, I'll sit there and I'll beg them, you know, what do you think? What do you think? Fine, never says a word. And then when it's all over with, then they tell me what they really thought of him. Because we've been taught to learn by our own experiences and to be independent and make our own decisions. And they don't want to be hovering over us 24 hours a day, which is really very nice. I wouldn't trade them for anything. They're my best friends.
Try and communicate to as many people as possible. The man that we know is a family.
It's so much easier to get up and talk off the top of your head and tell people about you because we know you than have someone throw notes in your face. I mean, it's so formal, and that's, you know, we're not formal.
That's for sure.
One of the most impressive things about the family is that each one of the kids is an individual, and certainly Mrs. Ford's an individual and has expressed her opinions quite candidly, as has Jack, as have the other kids. The president, to his credit, although he may not like on certain occasions what they say, strongly believes that they should be able to do what they want to do, and strongly believes that they should be able to say what they want to do. I've never heard of one instance of him saying, can't you cool it a little bit, or that was a little rough. Never.
As outspoken as she is caring, Betty Ford has been loving wife and colleague, mother and campaigner. Gerald Ford has cherished her and cherished her independent spirit. Gerald and Betty Ford are a love story. Together, they had a family united, able to accept the blessings that life brings and the anguish.
That we learned about this Thursday about 7 p.m. and we decided that we would just carry on today as though nothing had happened, and then we would hope for the very best on
Saturday, which we have great faith will be the case.
The candor about Betty Ford's operation for breast cancer lifted once and for all a veil of shame and secrecy for all women. The nation rejoiced with the president and his family on her recovery.
Greatest source of strength, one person who I love, respect, and am darn proud to have as part of the coalition.
Thank you, Mr. President. I truly appreciate you all turning out, and I just can't tell you how much we appreciate the support that you have given the president, and I sort of like him too.
Idealism, responsibility, and strength. These principles guide President Ford.
It seems to me that this is important when an individual is going to make decisions affecting the world. If he's a mean guy, if he carries on a vendetta, if he's vindictive, I'd be really worried about how he might treat some crisis in another part of the world. I think that you need that calm, careful, deliberate consideration of issues and put all petty passions aside.
Sometimes we get the idea that to succeed you have to be expedient and you can't afford to be a man of principle. And he is such a contradiction to that prevailing attitude and image that had been coming up the last few years. And I think it's good for people to see that you can stick by your principles and still be very successful. Traditionally, it was always the office rubbed off on the man, and I think just the reverse has happened, where the man with these tremendous principles has rubbed off in the office, and we've seen the office start to rise in prestige.
There is a new pride in the nation. America has found itself again. He promised no more than he could deliver. He delivered all that he promised. Gerald Ford, a man of strength, a decent man, a man America can trust.
And obey the laws. You are the people who make our system work. You are the people who make America what it is. It is from your ranks that I come, and on your side I
stand. Tomorrow is a very crucial election. But tonight, America is strong, America is free, America is on the move. But 2 years ago, America was in deep trouble. When I became president, inflation was over 12%. We were on the brink of a serious recession, the worst in 40 years. There had been a loss of trust in the White House itself. We were still involved in Vietnam. I took the oath of office in August of 1974. I said, I have not been elected by your ballots, but I ask that you confirm me by your prayers. Those prayers really help. In the meantime, America has turned around. I put the ship of state on an even keel. I held a firm hand on the tiller for a steady course. And today, we're doing much, much better. The rate of inflation has been cut by more than 50%. The
job picture is getting better. We've added 4 million more jobs in the last 18 months. 88 million people are working today. We've restored confidence and trust in the White House itself. And America is at peace. Not a single young American is fighting or dying on any foreign soil tonight. And I will keep it that way for the next 4 years. We have two major problems. One, to keep America strong, to meet the challenge of any adversary, to strengthen our alliances. And I pledge to you that the United States will remain number one. Our Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines will be the best as they are today. Some people have wanted to cut the defense budgets. That would be a big gamble. I believe that the way to keep the peace is to keep strong. But in order to keep our domestic economy strong, we need additional tax reduction. Last January, I told the Congress they should cut your personal taxes. I think the best tax reform is tax reduction. I recommended that your personal exemption be increased from $750 to $1,000. Congress didn't do its job. But on January 3rd, when Congress comes back, I'll have a tax reduction proposal on their desk so that they can give the middle-income taxpayer who has been shortchanged the kind of a tax reduction that group in our society so badly need. But in addition, we have some other problems. We'll do a better job in the next 4 years in making certain that the victims of crime are protected and that the criminal goes to jail. We'll do a better job to help our older people who have earned our respect and our support. We'll do a better job in meeting some of the problems of our major metropolitan areas. We have a lot of things to do, but we're in shape to do it now that we're over the hump of the tough last 2 years. And so we come to the final round in this election. I want your prayers as you gave them to me 2 years ago. But I would hope that you would confirm me this time by your ballots. I promise you, I pledge you, that I will not let you down. Thank you, and good night.